A suspect is now in custody after a Louisiana police officer was shot and killed last night. Alex Hogan has the details. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Jackie. Last night's shooting is just one of several involving officers this week. And in this latest fatal one, the gunfire broke out when 3 officers responded to a call in Webster Parish, Louisiana. 2 officers escaped unharmed, but 1 is dead after being shot in the head. The suspect is in custody. Officer William Earl Collins Jr. went by Billy. He worked at a correction center and served the Doyle Line Police Department. His wife sharing this photo with Fox News. He also leaves behind daughters. The sheriff speaking out about this tragic loss.
We lost a good man. Family lost a good husband, good father. It just breaks my heart because every time we put on this uniform and we go out and we try to serve the public, this could happen to anybody.
In Indiana, another shooting on Wednesday. Local police detective Greg Ferenczi died after being shot and killed during an ambush outside a federal building. In Chicago, one man faces federal charges after allegedly shooting 2 federal agents and a city police officer. Bullets wounding 1 ATF agent in the hand, striking the other in the torso, and grazing the officer in the head. In Chicago, shootings this year are up 11% from this time last year and up 58% from 2 years ago. Last weekend was an extremely violent weekend with more than 100 gunshot victims, and just last night alone, 10 people were shot and 3 of them were killed. Jackie.
Wow. Alex Hogan, thank you so much. All right, joining us now is National Fraternal Order of Police President Patrick Yoes, who is from Louisiana and working to strike a deal with lawmakers on police reform and protections. Thank you so much for being with us, Patrick. I want to get just off the top your reaction to that latest news.
Well, I tell you, our hearts are broken for Dolan police officer Billy Collins, and not just Billy. This is a trend that's happening across this country with a 91% increase in the amount of ambush attacks on law enforcement officers from this time last year. So it is so vitally important that we find a way to move past this really difficult time in American history and find some common ground to build some common sense legislation so we can move forward and rebuild the support and trust we need in our communities across the country to law enforcement.
So yesterday, the White House announced that President Biden will meet with law enforcement, local officials, and advocates for a gun violence discussion on Monday. And that follows criticism that the White House hasn't vocally enough addressed this spike in crime that we've been seeing across the country. What do you hope comes out of that meeting on Monday?
Well, I can tell you that the Fraternal Order of Police, along with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, have been very much engaged for the last several months, working with members in the Senate and in Congress in order to be able to find some common ground to build a path forward for common sense legislation that will help us move forward. The talks have been good. We've found some very good common ground. We've agreed to a framework, and really now it's up to Congress to build consensus around their constituents in order to be able to move forward. We're cautiously optimistic that we're still having those discussions, but it's so vitally important that we have these discussions, because if you look at what's happening across this country, with the attacks on law enforcement is one thing, but just look at the murder rates. Look at the places where we've done the defunding law enforcement, where progressive prosecutors and district attorneys have a revolving door allowing people out of prison. And what we're seeing is a murder rate that's going through the roof. Atlanta, 36% increase. Los Angeles, 24. Minneapolis, 45. Philadelphia, 35. Portland, 336% increase in murders since this time last year. So we really need to focus on trying to find a path forward. And unfortunately, we find ourselves at a place where some are more interested in the talking points and the problems than they are with the type of solution. And so we're very much in need to move forward with this so that we can start building trust back for law enforcement. We're caught in the middle of a political battle, and it's just not fair to the 800,000 men and women across this country that go to work every day and make a difference in their communities.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers speak for themselves. And I want to point out, on June 30th, you wrote that demagoguery and scare tactics have jeopardized the future of police reform negotiation efforts, might have derailed their efforts. You pressed Congress to continue its efforts toward criminal justice reform. But you said that if this fails, it's not just going to be tragic for communities, but also for police officers. Can you describe that?
Well, I think there are some that are more focused on the issue than they are on finding some common ground to move past it. But the problem that I think we see across this country is simply this. Congress's inability to be able to embrace this and find some common legislation that takes in consideration of all of their constituents leaves states out trying to figure out their own police reform. So what we're seeing is police reform that has such a wide range of approaches to it. And quite honestly, someone who spent 36 years in law enforcement, some of those are going to have really serious, deadly impact within their communities, and we're already seeing it. So
right.
it's important for Congress to pull together and find a path forward so that we can fill this gap and not be in a position where states feel like they need to enact such legislation.
Now, the NAACP said at the end of last month there are a few factions within the law enforcement community who don't want meaningful change or accountability, accusing them of standing in the way of a path forward. Who are they referring to, and is that at all true?
Well, I can't speak for NAACP. I can tell you I know where we've been. We have been seated at a table, sitting down with senators and members of Congress, having these really very difficult discussions on how to move forward on something that makes sense in how we can improve criminal justice system. Look, our profession is directly related to the trust we have within our communities. Unfortunately, they have some that would like to destroy the reputation of law enforcement in order to be able to have this political issue. This is not about politics. We're not engaged in politics. We're engaged in a path forward in something that is meaningful, but at the same time protects the rights of law enforcement officers across this country.
Sir, we've run out of time. I have to leave it there, but thank you so much for being with us, and we'll of course have you back again in the future to talk about this more.